it's not even really about skills sometimes. It's just about perspective, just kind of in roles. We have a role as bass players, right? I mean, I no matter what I do, no matter how fast I play or how complicated or anything else, I still, when my role is to play bass, I play bass. That's it. You wouldn't know I'm a six-string player if you weren't looking at me. I'm going to play bass.
Hi, and welcome to ForBassPlayersOnly.com. I'm John Leifman, and I help people over 50 who want to learn to play bass but haven't gotten very far with it yet, or at least not far enough. If you've ever wanted to learn bass, you should know that right now there are thousands of people inside the For Bass Players Only community, men and women in their 50s, 60s, 70s. I've got students in their 80s. And you know what they're doing? They're learning bass. They're having the time of their life playing music that they love. Come join them and experience that incredible transformation for yourself. As I always say, you're never too old to groove. So let's play bass. I've got an awesome interview for you this week. Mike Pope, old friend of mine. He's got a brand new album out. He is, if you don't know who Mike Pope is, he's a highly accomplished upright and electric bass virtuoso based in Baltimore, Maryland. He's performed with everybody from Chick Corea, John Patitucci, the Brecker Brothers, Nate Smith, Bill Bruford, Al Di Meola, Gil Evans, Blood, Sweat, and Tears. It's quite a cross section of acts. And he's also released several critically acclaimed albums of his own as a leader, composer, band leader. And the most recent is The Parts You Keep, which just came out August 22nd, 2025. And Mike also is creator in residence at Trickfish Amplification and proprietor of Vatican City Sound. Wonder how he came up with that name, both of which allow him to design exciting new gear and to record music that he loves. And he's also a respected educator who currently serves as associate professor of bass at the Berklee College of Music. Here's my interview with Mike Pope. Hiya, Mike. Good to see you again.
Hey, John. Nice to see you. Thanks for having me.
Oh, thank you. It seems like it wasn't that long ago. It was like 3 years ago we did the last interview.
Sounds about right. Yeah.
And that's a comfortable space in between interviews, but this is particularly exciting because of the main reason that brought this interview about, and that is your new recording, I'm sorry, the parts you keep.
Yep.
And I've been listening to it. It's awesome, and you got a great lineup too with Jeff Keezer and Randy Brecker. And so let's talk about that. I'm guessing you want to talk about the new record.
Well,
Set.
sure. Yeah. I'm really excited about it. I actually recorded it. I think when I saw you, I said it would have been the probably spring of 2022, and I recorded it at the end, like in October of that year. So it took a long time. It turns out it takes a long time to do literally everything on, on a record, like everything from booking the hotels to notating the music, to writing the music, to producing the music, to editing the music, to mixing. It's like, wow, it took a long time. But and I didn't, I wasn't in a hurry. I took my time. Thought, you know what, it's my record. I'm funding it. I can take all the time I want and make sure that it's really right. And I'm glad I did, because it actually marinated long enough to evolve a little bit and become maybe even a little bit more than the sum of its parts, as it were.
It's funny because I've interviewed a lot of people, and it's almost like when a band puts out a new record and then they tour, they kind of wish, well, the purpose of the tour is to promote the record, but then at the end of the tour, they kind of wish they could do the record now because they've lived with it for so long, and it, as you say, marinated and it's gelled, and they could have, so they could do a lot.
Yeah, it's and that's actually, that's actually that plays into one of the big pitfalls of self-producing a record in your own studio, and that's that, you can theoretically replace all kinds of stuff. And it doesn't, it's not always a good idea. I mean, and that's something that I kind of discovered, well, I've just kind of rediscovered over and over again, sometimes just what happens in the moment is is the magical part, and and going back and trying to do it better is kind of a pipe dream. I think, but that's just that's why some bands tour before they do records. Sometimes they'll like learn the music, write the music, go out and play it for a while, and then come back and record it. And that's usually like those are usually the records that are like, holy crap, like those are the ones where the things just lift off. Um, and
And they say at the concert, we'd like to do something off the new album, and everybody goes, boo,
Yeah, right, right. No, they're always like, we want to hear
the
free.
hits.
Anyway, yeah.
Well, you rattled off a lot of things that went into making this record or any record, and you giving me the feeling that you personally took on a lot of those jobs, most of them, right? The
Yeah, I
production,
mean, I,
I don't know, engineering or whatever.
yeah, I mean, literally all of it. Uh, I, when I was getting ready to make the record, a friend of mine said, "Well, man, if you got all those guys on the record, man, maybe you should go to a major studio or something and record it." And I was like, I mean, I can either afford to hire these guys or I can go to a major studio. Which one's going to make a better record? You know? So I'm like, I'm going to hire these guys. And I mean, and I'm thrilled with the way the record sounds too. I think it sounds great. I mean, it doesn't sound like it needed any more of a studio than it had, to me. And but yeah, I did. I mean, and it was a crazy thing because I decided that shortly after I saw you actually at Berkeley in 2022, I kind of decided that I wasn't gonna teach over the summer. I just was like, man, I need a break. And so I thought, well, so I should write some music, I should write some music and do a record. So I thought, well, see, so I should try to find a time like in August that I could schedule the sessions. Here it is, it's May, I can start writing. I have a few months, a couple of months. And it just, because I don't have management, I was dealing with all the negotiations with all the musicians and not just negotiations, but just scheduling. It's hard to get people in the same place at the same time. And I did not want to do a remote compiled record. That's just, I'm not interested in that. I don't really care to do that. If I'm going to call it a jazz record, at least I'm not going to do that. There are other things that in situations where I would be happy to do that, but this one I wanted to be live. So it was very difficult, and I didn't get everybody nailed down until like September. And so school had started again, and I was really thrilled because Nate Smith was, I think, this overall the busiest of everybody and might still be. The guy is just incredibly busy. And so it took a while to get him nailed down. And once we did, then I was like, woohoo, this is great. And then I thought, oh my God, that's 5 weeks away and I haven't written anything. So I had a lot of music to write and arrange and notate and correct and hate and then love and whatever, in the course of 5 weeks. So it was pretty intense.
You
And
put the band together before you had the music written?
a lot of it, yeah, yeah.
That's also almost like a chicken and egg thing because, okay, here's the band, let's write for these individuals, or here's this idea I have for a song. Who can I get to play on it?
Oh,
Was it
yeah.
some
No, I was more interested. I'm sorry, I cut you off. Did you have something else you want to say?
hope?
Oh, for me, the record is about the players. It's about the interaction, the communication. It's the tunes facilitate it. But I was more interested in having these personalities get together and play, and so I tried to write music that I thought would give all of these people, opportunities to be who they are, to be the best version of themselves and to communicate. Chick always, when I was on the road with Chick, he was always telling me, he's like, our product is communication. And I thought, well, that's an interesting way to look at it, but I get it, and so I kind of was thinking that way. And so yeah, I did. I wrote it with them in mind. A lot of, and yeah, I mean, there were a couple of tunes that already existed. Misgivings already existed, and Pastor's Prologue already existed. But Pastor's Prologue was I mean, it was just this weird little MIDI sequence that I did in like 1990 with cheap synthesizers and just really silly sounding. And I wanted to use some music from that period in my life, and so I I reconstructed that one so much that it's almost not the same tune anyway. But it's um, but yeah, but mostly I was thinking about, all right, what would what could I do where Keezer and Nate can just like be Keezer and Nate, because they had just met that day. They had never, well, the first time they'd played together was that first day. So the
Wow.
chemistry was wild, man. I mean, it was, um, and so then I wrote that tune, Dashan's Flying Uber Car, which is just, basically like what happens when you just give Keezer and Nate Smith a, a simple groove motif and one chord and just say go. And that's what you get. And it's like stellar. It's unbelievable. And what the stuff
Do you
that they
have any expectations? And if so, did they come out similar to what you thought, or did you just have no idea what was
uh,
going to come out?
well, I feel no, I mean, I didn't, oh gosh. Yeah, I mean, in some senses, I had some recollections in my mind of experiences that I'd had with Keezer on the road and with different musicians. And so I, I, I knew that Keezer and I have always had a really good aural connection. We've always kind of been able to understand each other, in terms of what we're doing harmonically and melodically in the moment, um, for whatever reason. And so I expected some degree of that, and there definitely was some degree of that. But to me, that's barely even a musical component. It's more like, who do I invite to this party who's going to be interesting to talk to, you know? And and those two got into an amazing, deep conversation that I got to be a part of. So um, in so no, I didn't have specific expectations other than I wanted these guys to just come in and be who they are, and that formula, that was enough, or more than enough. Does that
What
make sense?
is the parts you keep? What is that all about?
Well, so the title itself was um, borrowed from the title of a Tom Waits tune called "The Part You Throw Away." And although musically there's no similarity at all between any of with any of it, just that idea I thought was cool because um, I had really been, as is the case I think with a lot of people, kind of like uh, so creativity and development kind of comes in waves, and I was kind of at the bottom of a wave, and I was trying to kind of figure my way back up, and I started revisiting the ways that I thought about music when I didn't really know anything about music. And I started to realize that, that all these identities that I've kind of had, musical identities that I've had over the years, and these little periods of my life or whatever, have revealed certain things to me about music and about how I interface with music. Um, and it just sort of occurred to me that each of these identities that you kind of, that I, not identity, each of these versions of myself that I've experienced over the years brought with them, certain components that don't get superseded by new knowledge. I mean, some things you learn, and oh no, that was the wrong way to do it. This is the way to do it. But other things that you learn, it's just like, all right, this is how I understand this, and this is going to be relevant for the rest of my life. And so those are the parts you keep. That's how I think about it. So that's why I made the record. I used musicians from the extreme ends of the spectrum of jazz history, pretty about as extreme as I could get, with Randy Brecker being I think, as I said in the liner notes, I mean, it's like his name's carved into the bricks that the foundation of modern jazz is built on. I mean, he's just, he's there. He's one of the foundational figures. And then, look at Roxy Koss, who's an amazing tenor player, more young and upcoming, and much younger than that even was Amaury Cabral, the guitar player from Berkeley, who was just a student who I heard, and I thought, man, this guy has something really special. And so I hired him. And similarly, I tried to use music from different periods of my life. So the past is prologue was, I wrote that when I was 20. And Misgivings, I wrote one night. I woke up, anyway, I was going to sleep one night and that tune started to develop through my head, and I went to the piano and composed it. And and then stuff that I wrote like right here and now. And then also, revisiting things like tunes from my from when I was a teenager that were meaningful to me. That my dad had this jazz compilation CD because he was like the first guy on the block with a CD player, and he had this compilation CD, and there was one group. I think it was four different groups on the record, and one of the groups was I think it was called the Jack Sheldon All Stars. And so Jack Sheldon, the trumpet player that led the Merv Griffin band, and then also guys like Tommy Newsom and Mundell Lowe and Ed Shaughnessy, I think Joel DeBartolo, all from the Tonight Show, and all from the Johnny Carson days. So, and they did a couple of arrangements of That Old Feeling, which is a ballad that I wrote a whole string arrangement for, and Steeplechase, which it's just a rhythm changes tune, but it's a little more obscure. It just doesn't get played as much. And so but I just remember listening to that stuff. And first of all, listening to Alan Broadbent. Pretty sure it was Alan Broadbent. And he was playing the harmonies that he wrote, on That Old Feeling were just like, man, this is amazing. And so I borrowed a lot from that. He had a whole arrangement that I didn't, do anything with, but that, and then Steeplechase, I just remember Mundell Lowe, who lived into his 90s and was still playing his ass off. Mundell Lowe I remember he played the bridge on that tune. He played one chorus, he played the bridge, and he just did this bizarre just every note was almost in there, you know what I mean? And then it just slowly resolved back, and it was nuts. It was really, really cool. And I just remember being blown away by that. So it's just stuff that was meaningful, and from various periods. I'm trying to think of what else. Some of the tunes like Girl. I'm sorry, go ahead.
Giant steps. I never heard a treatment of giant steps like I did
Oh
on it.
yeah, well yeah, yeah, steps of extraordinary size, or of unusual size. That's my
I got to
principle.
tell you, when I heard the saxophone on the parts you keep after the intro,
Mhm.
for a second there, I thought it was another treatment of giant steps because of those first four.
Oh yeah, sure, yeah, I can see, yeah, right, yeah, because it is just a triad, yeah. Um, but no, that's just the melody to that. That's the melody to that tune. And yeah, the Giant Steps arrangement was just I had years ago. I remember just I think it was after I had heard that Wayne Shorter record, High Life, and this tune, Midnight in Carlotta's Hair. Interesting title that I should probably ask about someday. Um, but I just remember the way that he moved in and out of major and parallel major and minor was so cool. And so I started trying to come up with an arrangement of Giant Steps that kind of did that. And so it sort of started out like that, like sort of a and just going back and forth between G major and G minor, and so that was an arrangement that existed for a while, and then it just languished, and then I was working with this great Latin band from DC called Afro Bop Alliance, and I made a sort of a little more extensive arrangement of it. And then when it came time to do this, I thought, oh man, I should like take those chords and do some sort of a cool arpeggiated thing. That would be cool. And then the arpeggiated thing felt weird, and then I remembered this Don Grolnick tune called Water Babies off his record Media Noche. He did all these like major second kind of harmonies, like kind of stuff. And I thought, wow, that's cool. And it just kind of then it just sort of evolved, it just unfolded from there, basically. So, that's so it was influenced by a lot of things. And it's just where it ended up. And at times I thought, geez, this is a weird arrangement. People are gonna, somebody's gonna be offended by this. Somebody's gonna be, you know what I mean? And somebody who's a serious like Coltrane head is gonna be like, man, this, not cool. You shouldn't do that with Coltrane, da 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 da, whatever.
And you
And
weren't trying to sound like Coltrane, obviously.
no, no, definitely not. But sometimes, there are people who really think that, it's the way that Coltrane played stuff is the way it should be played, period. And that's fine. I mean, but at the end of the day, I just thought to myself, just like with engineering, you always build contingency in because it's always going to be the thing you didn't think of that's going to bite you in the ass. And I thought, well, I mean, no matter what I write, somebody's not going to like it. Somebody is going to like it. And so who cares? So I just didn't care. So I just said, you know what? I'm just going to write it and I'm not going to second guess myself. And if something sounds a little derivative, so be it. And I don't think it ended up being that way, but at the end of the day, it's not really right to say I don't care what people think. Is actually, I think that's kind of a rude thing to say. I don't think audiences want to hear that you don't care what they think. But you can accept that somebody doesn't like something that you do. That's, you can accept it. Sometimes if it's somebody you really respect, then it kind of hurts. But accepting it is fine. Not caring, I think, that's headed down a negative rabbit hole, in my opinion. So,
Well, there's a balance in there that I think you're trying to strike. And I respect you for your opinion, and I'm sorry if you don't like it. This is meaningful to me, and I don't know.
yeah, yeah, right, right,
I
right,
think
and
my wife and I always agree on what to have on in the car when we're, you know.
right. Oh, I know.
When we first got married, I'm taking her to see John McLaughlin and Chick Corea and Wayne Shorter, and she says, "No, no, Kenny Loggins, James Taylor." I said, "Okay, I like those guys, so I got your number."
And my brother and his wife had a similar experience. My brother Dave is a really great guitar player and drummer, and in Atlanta plays bass too, pretty well. It kind of pisses you off a little bit, uh, but he's a huge Pat Metheny freak. And but when I was over in Europe it's summer of 24 with Al Di Meola. And I haven't played with Al in a while, but we're still in touch, and he needed somebody to do the international stuff last summer. And so my brother and his wife is from the Netherlands. So they decided to kind of do a combination vacation and North Sea Jazz Festival trip to see, me play with Al. And it was funny because she's like, "Oh my God, I love Al so much more than Pat Metheny." She loves Al. She wants the rock and roll, But David's like, my brother's like, Pat Metheny. She's like, so it's kind of like, tastes great, less filling. But yeah, but they find a balance.
So if you play with Al, I know there's some stuff where the bass has to use a pick. Is that right? Is that still the case?
Well, yeah, unless you're me, I don't know. I just I didn't I don't play with a pick. I wish I could play with a pick. I love the sound of a
Yeah.
pick on bass. I mean, and Bobby Vega is like one of my all-time favorite bass players to listen to. It's just is killing. And of course, Anthony Jackson, played with both. But no, Al, that tour, after they hired me for it, and I had committed to everything and all that, then his manager did call and say, by the way, he wants you to play a Fender Precision bass with a pick. And I can't do that. It's not that I won't, I can't. I just can't. I mean, if I were going to be going on the road with him for a year and there was a bunch of music to prepare, then that would be worth it. But to go out to do 10 gigs, that's an awful lot of work to teach myself how to play with a pick, for 10 gigs. So it just didn't make sense. I wasn't going to be able to get good enough that fast. It was only a few weeks off. So I just said, I'm sorry, I just can't do it. So if you really need that, then you're probably gonna have to find somebody else because I can't do it. But but I also understood, I know, I mean,
What happened in that particular case? Did you
well, in
do it?
that particular case, they just basically said, okay, okay. They said, all right, and we'll go with it. But I also, I mean, I know what Al wants, and my job is to make the band leader happy. So, you know, I did work on the music, and I did develop a slightly different touch with my right hand, so I could get a lot more bite than I usually do. Added some upper mid range and got it to where it really went, really cut through hard, and I played a little heavier than I usually do, and whatever else just to get it to do that. Um, but at the end of the day, Al is a musician, and when the music is good, he's generally happy, So uh, uh, it's yeah. I mean, that was just what it was. It wasn't a like an ugly negotiation or anything. It was just kind of like, oops, kind of late in the game to bring that up now because I can't possibly do it. Um,
I discovered Al around 1977 when my best friend turned me on to Elegant Gypsy and the Romantic Warrior,
he
and I
was at the peak of his powers then, man. Holy
lost
crap.
my mind. But I interviewed Al, uh, I don't know how many years ago for my guitar site.
Hmm.
It was funny. There was a girl in our neighborhood who had the same first name as Al's manager or touring manager, whatever it was. And I
Hmm.
sent an email or a text and I said, my wife and I would like you to come to our house and pull weeds on Saturday at 2 o'clock. Can you do it? And she wrote, I think this was meant for somebody else.
Oops. Oh well.
Yeah, you just reminded me. I haven't thought of that in a long time, but that's my Al Di Meola story. But no, I told them all the bass players I interviewed and all the I said we published interviews with Paul McCartney and Geddy Lee and Sting and all that. I got to tell you, I've never been more starstruck than I am right now sitting here next to you. And he was such a nice guy. Did Gumby Ortiz play on the gig? He's been with him for like ever, right?
Oh, Goomby, yeah. Goomby is
Boom.
Goomby's my good friend, and he yeah, he was on the gig. We had a blast. And I love playing with Goomby. In fact, I just did a CD release here in Baltimore a couple weeks ago, and I flew Goomby up for it. We had never actually Goomby and I had never played in a situation outside of Al. And Al's gig, for the bass chair, there's not a lot of like playing in terms of like really, like really kind of like opening up and um, uh,
Not a blowing gig.
it's not a blowing gig at all. There's not, and I wish it were because I love some of that music, and I love some of the chord changes, and it would really be fun to have more bass solos. But
All
that's
the
not
are all the parts written out though, or do you get chord?
mostly. Yeah, I mean a lot of it's written out like note for note. Yeah, a lot of it is. And I mean, and there's,
Do you get
I,
to have the
I
music? No, I'm interrupting you. I'm sorry. Do you get to have the music on the stage, or do you have to
oh
have it
yeah, oh
first?
yeah, yeah, sure, yeah, yeah, I
Okay,
do. I had to. I mean, there was no way I was going to learn
that's
that
a
much.
lot of notes, man.
Yeah, I mean, in that number of gigs, the first time I went on the road with him was, I don't know, 2006 or something like that, maybe, and it was like a 3 month long tour, and he called me for it like 2 days before the tour started. So I was like learning music in my car while I was driving up to New Jersey, and and I did, but that was like that we got on the road, and it was like pretty almost every night for a month. So by the end of the month, I had the whole book memorized, obviously, and um, but but yeah, no, there wasn't any way to, there just wasn't that, and that music's hard, man. It is not easy music. So
What is it? Race for the devil on race with the devil on Spanish Highway, or
British Highway, yeah, yeah,
is it?
although he didn't really do that one that much. He did like Casino and Elegant Gypsy and Dark Eye Tango, and he did some of the like the him of the Seventh Galaxy and
Oh, oh,
some of that kind of stuff too. Where have I known you from? That no, Song of the Pharaoh Kings,
yeah.
some of that chick stuff. Midnight Tango is one that actually there is a bass solo in. It's always kind of a highlight for me because I get like 16 bars or so. But
I saw him with Chick and Al, Chick and Stanley and Lenny.
Yeah.
Four of them would return to forever. It was probably around that time you were talking about,
Yeah, it was
2000.
probably 2008, and I saw that tour too. I saw it at the it's Meriwether Post, and it was freaking
Ah,
ridiculous.
I
I,
told my wife, I have to go. I have to go. This is like the Beatles getting together again. I have to see Return to Forever.
yeah, yeah, me too. It was pretty spectacular, man. It was
Yeah.
really, yeah.
But what else is keeping you busy, Mike? What's going on?
Well, Berkeley keeps me pretty busy. Although this summer, it's a lot lighter, and this summer has been great. I've done a lot of practicing, and I've really been doing a deeper dive into the double bass in the last year and a half or so.
You're associate professor of bass, is that correct?
Correct. Associate professor. And yeah, they hired me as an associate professor back in 2017, and I haven't. I guess I should probably apply for a promotion to full professor. I don't know. I think you can do that, but I'm more focused on just dealing with my commute from Baltimore every week, um, and just making sure the students are learning. So I'm not thinking about my academic career so much.
Well,
um,
let me go off on a tangent if I may,
sure.
because you're teaching, and for bass players only is a bass instruction site, but it's for a very different demographic. Most of the people that are coming to for bass players only every day are mostly men, although we do have a fair number of women, but these people are in their 50s, 60s, 70s. I've got students in their 80s coming
Yeah,
every day to study to learn how to play bass. So I'm sure they have a totally different mindset than the people that you're dealing with over at Berkeley. These people are not career bound. They're not looking to get a gig or
sure. Yeah,
play sold out arenas to their adoring fans around the world. They want to play some classic rock riffs with their buddies. They want to play some blues shuffles, maybe some funk. Some of
sure.
them are into slapping, some of them are into walking bass. And a lot of times when we get into our 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s, things like arthritis and tendonitis and those kinds of things creep in. So I'm
Yeah.
telling you all this not to paint a dire picture, but just to give you a context, because I want to ask you, my goals were all wrong when I was, 17, or I was trying to do Stanley Clark and Jeff Berlin and, trying to play fast and all that stuff. I wasn't thinking about locking in with the drummer and setting the foundation for the band and making the music feel good and those kinds of things.
Right.
So throwing a lot at you here, but I wanted to ask you what kind of goals should these people have, or what should they be thinking about, or what advice can you impart to those kind of people who want to learn to play bass?
You're talking about to your clientele?
Yes.
Well, I, it's well, I don't. I mean, if I'm supposed to address the physiology part of it, then I'm not sure. But I think that for sure, like if I were teaching somebody like that, I'd be focused on repertoire. Teaching them tunes. Um, they want to be able to play with other people. You need to know the tunes. If you like, classic rock, then Um, and I think that I think with any kind of music, historical context kind of matters, and it helps to understand, like where did Geddy Lee come from? What was he coming out of, and in turn, what was he listening to, and that sort of stuff. I know he used to listen to King Crimson a lot, and um, anyway, but I would be mostly focused on repertoire, and I'd be watching technique really carefully so that I could help them not injure themselves. Especially, I know how it is. I mean, I'm only 55, but I still, I mean, I get I definitely feel it in my hands. I definitely feel it. That, the pinky on my left hand looks about twice the size of the one on my right hand from playing upright. It's just like it just is what it is. But I'm generally of the mind that um, if you if you don't if you can kind of work just the general sense of tension out of by tension I mean unnecessary muscles doing things that don't need to be doing anything. You can get rid of that, then by and large your motor nervous system won't want to hurt itself. you know um, I think a lot of it, there's so much. It's funny. I was actually just having a talk with Anthony. You know Anthony Vitti. He's a teacher. He's one of the faculty
Yes.
at
Yeah,
Berkeley.
yeah, I've interviewed him. Yeah.
Amazing bass player and a great, amazing teacher. I mean, and he's got just the groove thing for days. But we were just talking. I was just talking to him about. I was practicing my upright. I spend a lot of time now practicing in front of a mirror, like almost all the time. Not because I like the way I look, but because, I really,
Beside
I'm
the point.
finding that my intonation can go from nearly perfect to really bad just by canting my hand a little bit and I don't realize I'm doing it. And so I really focus on that. But as I was doing that, I was noticing that these muscles on the backside of my arm here were huge. And I got to thinking about that, and I thought, but the muscles that I'm pushing the strings down with are these in here, the flexors, not the extensors. And so all of a sudden, I got to thinking about what I know about physiology, is that muscle balance is huge. And in protecting joints and all that kind of stuff, having muscles on both sides that are moving that joint, you got whatever, you've got a muscle that's moving at this joint, or this joint, it's moving, this is pulling, and then when I let go, this is lifting it back up. Well, there's all kinds of resistance on this side. There's no resistance on this side. So sometimes I think feeling like when you get into that zone where you play an upright and all of a sudden your hand just feels like it clamps and you can't. I'm starting to think that that's a muscle balance issue, and I don't know how to address it. But what I do know is that over time my muscles have balanced out, and I've had issues, not issues, but I've had pain and stuff here and there with my hand, fatigue that I just don't have anymore. Um, and that tells me something. I don't know what it tells me, but I mean, for me, I've always kind of been the kind of person that, like, just knowing that something is there is valuable. Just knowing that it exists and that it's a factor can be valuable. But I'm also not a person who believes at all in, like, squeezing balls or hand exercises. Or I just don't. I just don't.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm sure it has probably some benefit, but I don't know. I just feel like the risk of injury is just so great in those kinds of situations. But so I would definitely be looking carefully at their technique and how they're going about playing, making sure that we don't have, too much what they call reciprocal inhibition. Like, if you just lift your arm up like this, you don't make a muscle, but when you tighten your tricep up, then your bicep makes a big muscle because the muscles are pulling against each other. It's when, the muscle on one side is inhibiting the muscle on the other side. And that creates a lot of tension. It's really bad. And so if you have that in your hands, then that's tension that you can try to work out, just get rid of, because that's just lack of coordination. That's muscles getting involved that shouldn't be involved. Um, and So yeah, I just like my wife is really big on vocal health as a vocal teacher. I think that technical health is really really important for anybody, especially if you don't play all the time, because you know how it is. I mean, sometimes you go without playing for a while and you pick up the instrument for the first 10 minutes, it just feels like, what is this thing? And then a while it's like, oh, okay, now I remember. Um, so if you don't play all the time, then you go through that a lot. You go through, a lot of periods where you're kind of coming back. And I think those are the periods where sometimes you can kind of really hurt yourself. So, um, plus, there's, like, God, with upright bass, sometimes the first day I haven't played in a while, sometimes you're like, ah, you can like, and then you just immediately wear out because there's no endurance because you haven't been playing, and then all of a sudden you've got fatigue and you try to play through the fatigue and then you start to have pain and da 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 da, So, um, I'm just always really aware of that with any student. Also, people that play, especially play with basses that have small bodies, and they rest their arm on the bass and they keep their wrist cocked at a really sharp angle, like those kinds of things. I'm always really trying to, like, you know keep an eye on for every student, but for sure for people who are prone to injuries. As we get older, our muscle tone goes away, and our joints aren't like hinges, right? They're just bones that are stuck together. And the only thing that keeps them from banging against each other is muscle tone, right? Because muscle tone keeps them, up against each other. So, you get older, that gets looser, your muscle tone goes away, and then you start running the risk of hurting joints. So all of these things are things I try to keep in mind as as I work with any student, so that I'm setting them up for a healthy, future.
Yeah. You have room in your curriculum for, music, the circle of fifths, and there's all that stuff.
Yeah, I don't teach a lot of theory in terms of that kind of theory. I mean, I talk a lot. Everybody at Berkeley, all the teachers at Berkeley, kind of have a specialty, and mine is, a lot of students come to me to work on improvisation, vocabulary, phrasing, dynamics, articulation, all of the things that go into that. So I spend a lot of time with students talking about, or not just talking about, but talking about listening to and playing, um, like stuff that's not like really rigidly on a grid, and like there's a lot of students just want to come in and they just want to blaze like glass smooth 16th notes, which is in itself really impressive. But well, I spend a lot of time like being like, cool, let's play some Sonny Rollins. And then when they try to play a Sonny Rollins solo this and play it with that touch, they realize it's terrible. It sounds awful. Um, so it kind of I just try to open them up to musical forms of musical expression besides just what kind of everybody on the internet's doing. And I think that what everybody on the internet's doing is amazing. Don't get me wrong. I am not putting anybody down at all. I mean, my God, some of the stuff I see is just like unreal, just unreal. um,
I'm
and I
waiting
look,
for, but
what?
I'm waiting for you to
Well,
say,
not well, but that's not all there is. That's all. And if your goal is to be an internet sensation, then that's one set of parameters, and there's nothing wrong with it. But if your goal is to try to go out and communicate with other humans in real time and make music together, then there's a whole world beyond that, that you have to start to deal with. Um, One thing that I find that with bass players a lot, I mean, in particular bass players, is that because we all are really time oriented, right? We're always like, when I hear any kind of a groove, any kind of a pulse starts happening, I immediately entrain to it. Um, Meaning lock up with it. Entrainment is just that's a, some neurological term, but it basically just is the ability to, like, if I do two things in a row, I can entrain to that because I know where the third one's going to be now, right? Because it's going to come right here, right? If I only do this, I can't entrain to that because there's no reference. So anyway, I entrain to it right away. But then you try to play a Sonny Rollins solo, and Sonny Rollins is like a mile behind the beat, and it can be extremely difficult to let go of that entrainment and get behind the beat and play that way. It's freaking hard, man. It's just hard because we're not trained for that. We're made to play in time and in a certain zone on the beat, right? And what I've actually had students do, which worked really well. In fact, one student of mine who came in with hands that just like hands for days. I mean, this kid, jeez, it was crazy. Um, I had him learn the solo from Doxy off of Bag's Groove. So the Sunny tune, the Sunny solo, where he is just so far behind the beat. It's like the whole thing happens like the next day. It's so late, and it's just
I
incredible.
know
Um,
what you're talking about.
but I had him use that app Moises and pull everything out and practice only with the saxophone without the rhythm section at all. Just forget about the rhythm section and just play along with the saxophone and get comfortable with that phrasing, and then bring it back and play it along with rhythm section. And
Wow,
lo and behold, all of a sudden it was swinging.
that's a challenge.
It was swinging, and it felt great, and it felt like jazz.
Wow.
And so it's not really it's not even really about skills. Sometimes it's just about perspective. Just kind of in roles. We have a role as bass players, right? I mean, I no matter what I do, no matter how fast I play or how complicated or anything else, I still, when my role is to play bass, I play bass. That's it. You wouldn't know I'm a six string player if you weren't looking at me. I'm going to play bass. Um, but function sometimes when you're trying to do other things like solo and not sound like a bass player playing a solo, um, you need to experience these things from a different perspective, right? So sometimes you just go out and hire a bass player and go out and be a lead instrument and learn what that feels like, because that feels way different.
Yeah.
And when everybody stops playing and it's just the drummer and the saxophone player goes to have a drink at the bar and the piano player starts talking to his friend or what, you know what I mean? Like, it's way different um, when you have to function in that way. So it seems that to me that function is sort of at the heart of understanding these different perspectives, because yeah, saxophone player has a certain function in the band, and the piano player and yada yada, right? So that's generally how I come at it.
That's all great stuff. What about your gear? Can you tell me about your basses and
Oh man, I'm really boring when it comes to gear. I still just have one Federa six string, my Viceroy, my signature model that I've had since like whatever '09 or so, um, with the
that's awesome.
removable fingerboard and the sliding pickup and all that. And my use of all of those features has changed a lot over the years. Just because the kind of music I'm playing is, like when I was playing the Sanborn a lot, I was having to like slap more and uh, but now that I don't play a lot of gigs where I slap much, I don't really use the removable fingerboard all that often. But yeah, I love that bass. And then I have a Emperor Standard 5 fretless that's really beautiful. It's a walnut. It's a walnut top. I can't remember what the body would. It might be a walnut body too. I can't remember. Ash neck, I think, and or maybe an oak neck and an ash heel block. I can't remember. But it sounds beautiful and it's great and it's gorgeous to look at. And those are the only bases I have. Uh, I I'm just if it ain't broke, don't fix it. I mean, for me, I'm just interested in being me. It's all I really care about. I'm not trying to emulate anybody else. I'm not trying to learn how to play this or that to get this gig or that gig. I'm just not.
You
I'm
have to be you because everyone else is taken.
everybody else is taken and nobody else is gonna be you better than you. So
What kind of strings do you play on those basses?
I'm using those I'm using the Federa DR, Federa XDR nickels. I use I don't know what the set I've changed a little bit. I used to use like 34, 44, 62, 85, 106, 130. But their gauges have changed slightly now. So now I just use 34, 45, 65, 85, 105, 125, just because that's what comes in the set. I could get a 130, but sometimes it's a pain in the butt for them because, I'll be like, hey man, can I get some strings? And they'll be like, sure. And they got like, I got to put a set together and it's a pain in the ass. So, I did this way. They can just send me, I think it's a medium light set or something. I don't know. But for me, the 34,
125 is cool. You'll still hear that low
yeah,
bleep.
it's fine. I mean, actually, it's sometimes the 130 is a little thumpy anyway. So, then the
There's
34,
some
what?
affiliation with Federa and DR because I see them like hanging out together at NAMM.
Well, yeah, I think that what happened was Federa had their own proprietary string manufacturer. It's just a guy who made their strings for them. And I think they switched over to having DR manufacture them. So there's still Federa strings and there's still their own formula, but DR manufactures them. Pretty sure is how that works.
Gotcha. And what about Trickfish? I saw that name in your bio. Are you still
Oh
doing?
yeah, absolutely. I still, yeah, Ryan and I are and Ryan and Justin and I are in touch fairly regularly. I'm not officially working for them anymore, but I am, he's always calling me to ask me questions about this or that or the other. He sends me preamps to listen to, and um, I still use uh, my rig is just two of the single 12 cabinets that I really love. Um, that and I either use their Bullhead Mini 500 or the Bullhead 1K, both of which are, essentially my front end, the EQ section, my front end. And David Yates designed the in very first input stage, and he integrated the amps too. Like he was the
David
one.
Gates, really?
David Yates,
Oh,
Yates.
David Yates. Okay.
Yes, yeah. He's been a design partner of mine for a long time, and
I know David.
he took over building the Federa preamps, not building, handling the building of the Federa preamps after I just decided that I wanted to focus exclusively on music and didn't want to do electronics anymore. Um, so I still like it, I still have ideas. I still all kinds of ideas about electronic stuff that I think would be really interesting to do. But one thing I learned in my years of, actually trying to design and directly manufacture electronics is that good ideas are they don't necessarily matter. Because a good idea sometimes is a good idea that's only going to appeal to 15 people. And it's maybe a really objectively great idea, but just maybe not won't matter to enough people to make it worth doing.
Unless
Uh,
it's the right 15 people.
well, yeah, right, unless it's Marcus Miller and, yeah, um, uh, but yeah, it's I remember somebody saying, and you guys should make get like reverse taper pots so you can do left-handed preamps that are, actually rotationally the same as, right-handed preamps. And it's like, yeah, I mean, that's a great idea, but then that's how many literally thousands upon thousands of dollars I have to invest to have a volume control that I'm going to use twice a year on a left-handed preamp. You know what I mean? You just can't. I mean, it just doesn't make any sense. And there were so many things that I really wanted to do that I know would have made the preamps a lot better, but but I don't think it would have mattered to the vast majority of people. So, I just
I
decided.
understand the language, the point you're making, but I don't speak the language that you're
Sure, sure. Well, at any rate, I mean, the bottom line is that the doing anything, um, it needs to be to scale, or else it's not, with that kind of thing, or it's just not
You're
worth.
talking like a businessman.
Well, yeah, and I got really tired of that because I don't like to think that way. And my poor brain, man,
My
it
poor
can't,
brain.
I just can't like it. Just it was that was so frustrating for me when I'd be like, and all right, I'm gonna build preamps all day, and I'm gonna go play a gig, and my brain's like, zzz, 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 it can't like, didn't know what to do. Um, so I'm much happier now living on the right side of my brain 90% of the time.
Good for you.
Um, yeah. And I got a new bass a year and a half ago, a new upright bass about a year and a half ago, which I freaking love. And like I'm saying, I've been doing a much deeper dive on upright.
You
Uh,
put a pickup on that and maybe play it through a Trickfish amp?
yeah, I do. I put a what's on it? It's a Fishman full circle,
Ah,
like in the adjuster. Yeah, I play it through. I play it through the triggers. I mean, it's a 140-year-old French. It's a Parisian bass, and it's just an incredible instrument. I fell in love with it the first time I played it. I was like, my God, this thing. It cost me kind of an arm and a leg, but I had an extra arm and leg, so I went ahead and got it. And
the Fishman pickups are great too. It sounds like a good
yeah, the full circle is a
pairing.
really good. I mean, the original Fishman pickups, the ones that like clipped on the top of the bridge, were horrible. My God, they were awful. But that was back in the days when it was either that or an Underwood pickup. But now there are a few that are better.
Yeah.
I have keep a microphone on it too. I keep a DPA 4099 on it, but generally only use that like on gigs when I'm just going to send a microphone to the front of house, so they can mix that way.
I remember doing shows in like a pit orchestra or something, and they'd have a mic on me, and I'd keep hitting it with my bow, and the sound man would go crazy.
Yeah, and that's the nice thing about the DPA because it mounts under the tailpiece, and you're never anywhere near it, so you can play without having to be concerned. That kind of thing drives me nuts too. Um, uh,
What about the future, Mike? Anything that you haven't already mentioned? Is there another, do you have another record percolating? Do you have another project, or is there
oh,
something
I
you've always
always
wanted
have
to do that you haven't gotten around to yet?
I always have stuff running around in my head. Um, and sometimes what I end up doing just sort of depends on what the path of least resistance reveals itself to be. Um, excuse me. One thing I've been talking to Origin Records about is re-releasing my very first CD, the Walk Your Dogma, um,
I
which
remember
is
that.
it's. Do you have that record?
I don't think I have that one. I had the one, oh, I forgot. You had a stroke a long time ago.
I did. I had a stroke in 2011. Yeah.
And then you put out a record shortly after that. Oh,
Yeah.
the Vibes Lock, right? Was it
Good luck. Yeah, that was Cold Truth, Warm Heart. Yeah, that
yeah.
was came out in 2014. I
That
recorded it.
haunting melody on it. Doo, 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 or something like that.
Yeah, yeah, well, I think that was Joe's tune, "Dear Life,"
Yes.
that he wrote for Bob Berg after he passed away.
Uh,
Um, but wrote for him, or maybe
dedicated.
in his, I mean, maybe dedicated. I can't remember. But at any rate, yeah, I mean, we've thought about putting that record out, and it's a really, honestly, it's a really cool record. I mean, it's all fusion tunes. I was 24 years old. It's just nothing but youthful exuberance.
Yeah.
Michael Brecker's on it, Randy Brecker's on it. My couple of good friends from Long Island, Brian Dunn on drums. I don't know if you know Brian. He's stupid, stupid pocket, this guy. And Mike Raschuti on keyboards. Um, Tom Guarna on guitar on that. It's so I don't know. I might just re-release that. That would be relatively easy to do. Just kind of do it as a historical record. The cover is really stupid looking and all that, and it could be redesigned.
Careful about what you said at the beginning of this conversation. You go back and you try to tweak this a little better and make this a little better. Just release it like it is. I'm sure it's
I
awesome.
think I would just release it like it is. I might remaster it, but I don't have the original. I don't have the. I mean, it was done in 1994 to ADAT, two ADAT machines. So I don't have any
I
of the.
remember those. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I still have all the. I still have a stack of GP9 from my second record, The Lay of the Land. But again, I don't have a 2 inch. I don't have a 2 inch tape machine, so I can't use that for anything. So
It exists somewhere.
yeah, yeah. Well, there, yeah, somewhere. I mean, but I wouldn't want to. I mean, I think the record sounds good the way it is. I think I would probably just, I would remaster it maybe to make it just to put a little more slickness on it. But that I've got ideas for tunes running around that would be like a very groove oriented electric record that I could do. What I've been wanting to do, and what I've talked informally to Jeffrey Keyser and Antonio Sanchez about, and just very informally, is the idea of doing a trio record together, which I definitely really want to do. I just don't know when or how that's going to happen. And getting in and out of the country is not the easiest thing anymore. And Antonio's living in Spain, and he's not over here all the time. And so I don't know. I just don't know. Um, I don't know how logistically to make that work, but it's something I want to do. Um, and I do have a project coming up actually in a couple of weeks with a piano player who was originally from Detroit, I
Who's
think.
that?
His name is Bill Hyde.
Bill?
And Bill Hyde is actually an organ player, but real character, this guy. And um,
Because I'm
he's
from Detroit.
what?
I'm from Detroit. That's why I think I know the name.
Yeah. Well, he's a real character and just a really kind of a I don't know how to describe him. He's just completely unique and just all about blues. And I mean, this is the guy, you could take, have him play over an E flat major bossa nova and he's playing blues and it's just this, oh my God, man. It's like, anyway, there's just nobody like the guy. And I've known him since I was a kid. I used to do trio gigs with him and Pistol Allen, the drummer from,
Oh
the
yeah.
Funk Brothers. Like, we used to do
Yeah, he
trio
used
gigs.
to fill out the racing forms while he was playing the Motown records.
Right, yeah, because of the gambling thing. Yeah, right. And but anyway, so that Bill and I, we go way, way back. And I recently came across a recording that we did of just little ditties that he wrote. And it was when I was 23 years old, and we did this weird recording where we got this. I did it at my dad's living room, where we just like recorded bed tracks onto like a VHS machine,
Yep.
and then it's low noise, and then we played that back and played along with it, put our other parts over it, and so there was, obviously no mixing, no nothing, but I came across that recently, and I was like, wow, man, that for that point in my life, that was at the absolute best I've ever had been up to that point, like in terms of my post in my college slash post college before I moved to New York version of myself. That was an absolute best recording that there is. And I'm, I go back and I listen to it. First, I emailed Patitucci and I'm like, oh man, I suck. I was better when I was 23. And then he's like, no, you're not. And anyway, he talked me down. Um, but it was really inspiring actually because again I got to hear things about the way that I played when I knew a lot less about music and was much less mature, and found a lot of very valid things in that music. So it really inspired me to get together with Bill again, knowing that I'm a completely much different musician, and do a record. So we're gonna do like two little short records in one day. One of just some little uh, as he would call them, cute little bossa nova listicle tunes, and or Brazilianational or something like that. He's always making up funny words like that. And then a whole record of vicious blues, and he would say. So um, anyway, we're gonna do that just in a couple of weeks, and I'm actually really excited about that. A good friend of mine is coming down from New York to play drums on it. So. Um,
Please let me know when that's done. I would
Oh, I
love.
will, man. It's going to be cool. And then I don't know what we're going to do with it, but but I suspect it's going to be really hip. So,
Well, I
but that's
love your enthusiasm, your energy, and your passion for what you do, and finding yourself, left brain, right brain, all that stuff. And I love the new record. The production sounds great. The music is great. The cast of characters is awesome. So you are to be
thanks.
commended, my friend.
Well, I'm really glad you enjoyed it. Yeah,
Thank
I'm
you.
proud
The
of it.
parts you keep, and that just came out like what, August 22nd, I think.
Yeah, 22nd, just about a week ago. Yeah,
Well, today, as the day we're recording this, is August 29th. So yeah, it's 7 days old, brand new. So
yeah, brand spanking new, still crying.
get it. Still crying. I like that. Thanks so much, Mike. Great getting together with you always, and keep doing what you're doing. And we'll look forward to that one project in particular with Mr. Hyde, and then I'm sure there's going to be lots of other awesome stuff too. And I look forward to our paths crossing again personally. You going to the NAMM show or anything like that?
I didn't intend to. That's usually falls at a really bad time relative to the spring semester at Berkeley. So I don't know. I haven't looked at the dates yet. I haven't gone in forever. I might go. I don't know. If
It's a
I
good
hadn't.
time to go if you're in Boston or Maryland in January. It's,
Well, yeah, there's that. Because, yeesh, yeah.
well, wherever it is, and you know what, I'm about due to get out your way too, so I'll definitely hit you up when I'm out east.
Yeah, if you do, but by all means, man, please do. Yeah.
Take care, my friend. Congratulations again on the record, and let's talk soon.
Thanks, John.
Was that an awesome interview or what? If you don't have the record, you got to check it out. The parts you keep and everything else. He's got such great ideas, such insights. And I think I mentioned in the interview, I do love his passion and everything that he does. So good on you, Mike. If you've ever wanted to learn bass, you should know that right now there are thousands of people inside the For Bass Players Only community, men and women in their 50s, 60s, 70s, even 80s. And you know what they're doing? They're learning bass. They're having the time of their life. They're playing music that they love. Come join them. Experience that incredible transformation for yourself. As I always say, you're never too old to groove. I will see you right back here next week, same time, same place, with another bass player interview right here at ForBassPlayersOnly.com. In the meantime, I'm John Liebman. let's play bass.